As you know, President Obama and our administration have made climate change a top priority, and we've made significant strides to cut carbon pollution at home, to help bolster our resilience to the impacts of climate change, and lead international efforts to combat this global challenge. The continued global momentum we have seen since Paris has been reflected in the successes of the last several weeks, including most particularly the Paris Agreement passing the thresholds needed to enter into force. This context and momentum are hugely consequential, and their importance should not be ignored. It reflects global demand for action and movement to follow through. Here, in the context of the climate talks, we've begun the transition away from negotiation and toward implementation. Our Moroccan hosts have really been excellent throughout, and we look forward to working with them going forward. The U.S. team has spent the last week in a series of consultations and informal meetings to determine the shape of various working groups and initiatives launched by the Paris Agreement. We've made real progress in many of them, although some dialogues and contact groups are expected to continue this week before concluding. We've been focused in particular here on the work to flesh out the transparency system, which is the bedrock of this agreement. Further, discussions on adaptation communications have helpfully focused on the guidance that will build on the extensive work of the Adaptation Committee. Conversations on the global stocktake have also been very productive. Parties have shared a range of views, but all are converging on a process grounded in robust scientific inputs from the IPCC. We're also tremendously excited this week to launch the first CMA under the Paris Agreement, namely the first meeting of parties who have joined the agreement. As you're also likely aware, we have a high-level delegation from the U.S. Secretary of Energy Ernest Moniz has been here on the ground doing work on clean energy deployment and on our Mission Innovation Initiative. Secretary Kerry will join us tomorrow and Wednesday to hold a series of bilateral meetings and will deliver a speech that highlights the urgency of addressing climate change and the importance of continued ambitious climate action around the world. Furthermore, as we all know, soon we'll see a transition to a new presidential administration in the United States. In the coming weeks, we expect personnel from the transition team to arrive at the State Department and begin planning the shape and thrust of American diplomacy for the next 4 years. At this time, I do not have information about when that process will start or who will play a role in it, and I cannot speak for the President-elect's team or to their outlook on international climate policy. What I do know, however, is that the power of the movement and the enormous momentum created in Paris and built throughout the year since. Parties are deeply invested in seeing this work bear real fruit. With the agreement having entered into force, it's no longer a question of whether to accelerate the agreement's implementation, but rather a question of when and how. The Paris Agreement protects economic growth and the environment, all while providing nationally determined flexibility to accommodate differing circumstances. It is durable, it is inclusive, it is ambitious. I also know that markets are moving and countries are following. Prices for renewable energy are continuing their dramatic fall, as several recent auctions for clean electrical power have shown in Latin America and elsewhere. Banks and finance agencies are doing the needed work to allow private finance to move to meet growing demand for low-carbon solutions. Major economies like China have begun the substantial work of translating their pre-Paris climate goals into operational policy on the ground. In the U.S., utility-scale solar costs have fallen by almost 65% since 2008, while they have declined 65% in 2015 through 2008. We're installing, for economic reasons, not policies that favor one source over another, but economically driven programs. I also want to note we need new action going forward. We need to find strategies that protect our economic development while decarbonizing our system. We will release our strategy on Wednesday to suggest some sense of the trajectories that address this goal. I'll finish by noting that it was a global effort that made the agreement possible, and the passion and the dedication that drove it is in evidence throughout COP22. Heads of state can and will change, but I am confident that we can and we will sustain a durable international effort to counter climate change. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.